Hello everybody. I am making a video here about a topic that has been coming up quite often. If you came to the after hours meetings Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, the discussion obviously was a lot about demand and stuff like that. But the starting out on Monday in Willard, the CFO spit out a number of 12.5 cents per kilowatt hour, and I asked if that would cover the financial needs of the co-op, and she said yes. And so that's been the number that has been kind of thrown around a little bit as a comparative for, one of those big what ifs. If the demand charge was to go away and go back to a per kilowatt hour, that's kind of the roundabout area of where they say we would be. So that's a substantial price increase from the 9.5 cents I think we were at. But as we all know, the demand charge is a very substantial increase from where we were. So a lot of people are trying to compare what your bill would look like in either scenario. And there's a lot of people that have stated that even if their bill was more expensive, they would prefer the per kilowatt hour, the 12.5 cents per kilowatt hour. And I cannot speak for everybody. That cannot be everybody's sentiment. There will be some in that price point that your bill does go up. So you kind of have to ask yourself, is it worth it? If you have a higher bill, do you prefer the perception of control over your bill? That's kind of what I would call it. The control that you have over the kilowatt hour. Being more conservative is easier, it appears, at a per kilowatt hour rate versus the demand. And so I like math. I like doing ratios and things like that. So I kind of figured up a little method of comparing the two, and I'm sure some people are going to try to, and I hope you do, double check my math just to make sure it's all correct. But if you look at your bill, any bill, and you take the kilowatt hour usage, so the big number, and you divide it by the demand charge, not the dollars. This is not dollars. This is the kilowatt hour divided by kilowatt. And so if you do that, you can do all your bills monthly and stuff like that, the previous ones, just to see where you fall. But it's going to spit out a number. We're going to call that the demand ratio. I just made that up. And that number, if that number is 100, so 100 kilowatt hours per kilowatt of demand, if that number is 100, your bill would be exactly the same with the current demand bill structure versus 12.5 cents per kilowatt hour. I don't know how it landed at 100, but that's just what it did. And so if your demand ratio number is less than 100, your bill would be cheaper at 12.5 cents per kilowatt hour. If your demand ratio number is higher than 100, your bill will be cheaper with the current demand structure. Okay. Now, the possibility of having a cheaper bill on a 12.5 cent per kilowatt hour, notice the number is 100 and the lowest you could go is 0. That would be solar customers like myself. During these months like this, I don't use any kilowatt hours because I generate it all. So my demand divided by 0 is 0. So that's the lowest you can go. That is the lowest you can go. On the flip side, there is no end. There's no limit to how high that ratio can go meaning there's no limit to how, I can't say how cheap or how much cheaper your bill would be on demand, but you'll find out here in a minute. It doesn't go much over. I've seen some that go up to 200 and stuff like that. So which would be the same distance away from 100 that 0 is. So, we'll go on a little journey here. I've got a little cheat sheet. And so I had a gentleman touch base with me today wanting me to look over his bill and see my thoughts. Oh, my light just went out. I'm in my car because the dogs in my house would not leave me alone. So, okay, so this gentleman got a hold of me. He wanted me to look at his bill because his demand charge was the same amount as his kilowatt hour usage. It's not a real big bill or anything like that, but he had a 100% increase essentially in his electricity charge. So his kilowatt hour usage is 458 kilowatt hours. His kW demand is 10.69. So this is that is the average demand that Ozark Electric says they see across their system, and this is a well below average kilowatt hour usage. Now this gentleman says he's retired, fixed income. I don't know if he's single, like living by himself. I don't 100% know. But a low kilowatt hour usage typically means someone is very conservative with their electricity. They're not leaving lights on. They're not leaving, everything on when it doesn't need to be on. So his house has, an electric range, well pump, lights, obviously, a water heater, refrigerator, freezer, washer, dryer, just the things you need, just the items that you need. And so his demand ratio per my mathematics comes to 42, which is lower than 100. So it is below that point to where his bill would be cheaper at a 12.5 cent per kilowatt hour rate. Okay. Now the next bill, I just went on the Facebook group, and in the photos section, a lot of people have uploaded pictures of their bills. So I just grabbed a couple more. I don't know any statistics on what these customers have on these next two, but here's bill number 2. This is a big one, 3,284 kilowatt hours. This is this would be like what my house has in the winter, with all electric heat, and some really cold days, below 21, below 20, below single digits, whatever, to where my resistive heat turns on. So 3,284 kilowatt hours and a 19.7 kW demand. So high demand. Okay. This demand ratio ends up at 166. So this bill would be cheaper at the current demand billing structure versus 12.5 cents per kilowatt hour. So this customer right here, they are benefiting from demand on that bill. Now remember, 12 months out of the year, these two bills, these could be from the same customer 2 different months. I highly doubt it at the difference between the two, but if you look across your billing history, you will see sometimes some large variations. So bill number 3, again, I don't know any statistics on this customer's house. This is another very small, 328 kilowatt hours, 6.32 on the kW demand. And so their demand ratio is 51. So they are well below 100. So this customer would benefit from having a 12.5 cent per kilowatt hour rate. Okay, so play with your bill, look at your previous bills, and just make a mental note that, on your bill, divide the two, kilowatt hour by kilowatt, and the magic number is 100. You're not trying to hit it or anything, but that's where the break-even point is for either direction. The bills would essentially be the same, not taking into consideration the power cost adjustments and taxes and your facilities fees and things like that. But some of those are fixed. The power cost adjustment would be on the bill either way, based off your kWh. So, and so that is how a good way that you can look at your house to see your situation, and then it's up to you to kind of decide, okay, I would be benefiting, if the number's close to 100, if it's like 130 or 110 or something like that, your bill with a 12.5 cent per kilowatt hour rate, would be a little bit more expensive, but the chaos of the billing structure, the chaos of what people are trying to do to reduce their demand, in staggering everything. What is your time worth? What is your sanity worth? Are you trying to make changes to mitigate that? Are you trying to reduce your KW? And all that stuff you're going through, is it worth it? I cannot say that for you. I cannot. And I, like I said earlier, I'm a solar customer. My KWH is 0 9 months out of the year, because I overproduce, and so this ratio, it just lands at 0 for 9 months. And so obviously at that point, my bill would be cheaper with a 12.5 cent KWH. And initially that was why I went to some of the meetings and things like that with Ozark Electric back in January. Whenever I saw this billing structure come through, I looked at it as a solar customer, was like, oh my goodness, this is really bad. But I kind of stepped back and said, well, it's not just bad for me, it's bad for other people. There's customers here, 2 of these bills, obviously really low demand ratios, and they would benefit from a 12.5 cent kilowatt hour rate. So the next part of this, this is where things are going to get a little tougher to follow. I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible. So the same demand ratio that we just went through, you can apply that per appliance, okay? Because it's appliances and electrical devices in your house that are creating your demand and usage. So you can break it down to appliances. So I'm gonna go through the needed. Let's talk about the needed appliances. So like that first gentleman in his bill, he just has things that you have to have in a house. He has a refrigerator, he has an oven, a washing machine, a dryer, electric water heater, a air conditioner, a well pump. I don't have a well pump. There's lots of people in rural Missouri that has well pumps, and so I'm going to go through these. These are the needed things that houses have. So refrigerator, and I'm just going to give you the demand ratio. I'm not going to talk about how many watts it uses or how many kilowatt hours average. Some of these are, and some of you know, I record 16 circuit breakers in my house. I can check, I can check demand per device. I can check usage per device. I can track it to the second, to the minute, to the hour, I can look at history. I've had it for a couple of years. I really enjoy it. It's kind of a sickness that I have, but it's really helpful in this situation. So, and it's a product called Emporia View. Some of you have asked me about it. You've installed them in your own house and you're learning it right now. So again, I'm just going to go through these and tell you the demand ratio. And remember, if the number is below 100, this appliance would be cheaper to run for a month on a 12.5 cent per kilowatt hour rate. So refrigerator ratio is 80. It's below 100. It's cheaper on 12.5 cents. Oven, 16.1. It's pretty low. Washing machine, 12.5. It's pretty low. Water heater, 86.8. So it's close, but it's still cheaper on a 12.5 cent kilowatt hour. Well pump, 15.4. Dryer, 18.2. Air conditioner. Now I've got just spring months measured right now. We're not through June yet, so I do expect this to change a little bit, but late. Air conditioner. So in May, the demand ratio is 87. It's below 100. And in April, it's 73. Now I have a heat pump, so that May, I don't know if there were some cool months and I was using the heat pump for heat as well. I don't know. But still, both of those months, it is below 100. So that would have been cheaper for a 12.5 cent per kilowatt hour. So now we're going to get into some other things, and I'm going to, and whether this is a correct way to label it, but this is just how I'm going to label it. So these are more luxury items. So these are the things, and I've only got 3 of them, because it's kind of tough to think about things that are luxury items. But a swimming pool. Okay. I don't have a swimming pool. Had one growing up. Hated it. Hated the fact that my dad had to maintain it, so we just haven't gotten one. But anyone that has a swimming pool, you know what that pool pump does. That pool pump runs about 1,500 watts, and if yours is just plugged in and running, it runs 24 hours a day. And I just looked up what the average pool pump uses for a month. Granted, this is only running for 3 or 4 months out of the year, but still, a pool. The demand ratio for a pool pump is 720. Okay. 1,080 kilowatt hours per month and a 1.5 demand. Okay. The number is 720. This pool pump would absolutely benefit from demand charges. It's off the charts. Okay. The next thing, a hot tub. Okay. You could expect it to be similar. They're not as much motion of water and things like that, and so they don't use as much kilowatt hours. They do have a heater. They're usually about 3,000 watts on the low side. So if you had one that was a lot more powerful or bigger or anything like that, these numbers would change. But the number for a hot tub is 133 for this hot tub that I found, the average one. 399 kilowatt hours in a month, 3.0 demand. And so that one would absolutely benefit from demand. The next one is an EV, electric vehicle. You could call it a luxury item. The EV, I will say, is probably one of the smartest appliances. And I call it an appliance in kind of a silly way, but that's what it is. And you can charge them at different rates. The lowest setting of a level 1 charge is about 1.4 kW. And that would get you, this is, if somebody was really conscious about their needs, they could charge an EV at the lowest level, and it would get them, about 45 to 50 miles worth of charge through the night. So if you drove 50 miles roughly, and you plugged it in through the night, it would fill back up. That's a nice slow charge. Okay. The 468 kilowatt hours in a month, 1.4 demand. The demand ratio is 334. So an EV owner can absolutely benefit from demand charges. Okay. So let's review the items in your house that you have to have. All the items in a house that people have to have, you would be better off with 12.5 cents per kilowatt hour. Okay. Which is where we're not at right now. Where we are at is demand charge. The demand charge, people that have luxury items, you are benefiting. They are benefiting. And I can't imagine that it was geared that way to where families that are more well off, or families that are able to have some of these items, it's I can't imagine it's billed in a way specifically to benefit them. But my research, what I can come up with, if you own these things, you are better. You're at a cheaper rate with demand if you're purchasing luxury items, or what I would call luxury items. And so if a family is just solely owning the things they have to get by, fixed income, low income homes, retired elderly, think about all the situations, or just somebody who built a house. Spoke with another gentleman the other day, built a house, kind of one of the barn dominiums, spent good money on insulation. His kilowatt hour usage is very low, but he has all the things in a house that he has to run it. All the things that I listed that you would be better off with a per kilowatt hour rate, but you're worse off with the demand rate. So these are just some things to think about. Again, if somebody wants to check my math, look at your own bills, divide kilowatt hour by kilowatt, so usage by demand, and you will get a number. And if that number is higher than 100, that bill is cheaper on the demand. If that number is lower, you would have been cheaper with a 12.5 cent per kilowatt hour. Now, do I think 12.5 cents per kilowatt hour is the correct way to go? That's a hard thing to ask. I prefer a per kilowatt hour rate. It's just easier. It's just a normal way of billing. Okay. And I think everybody can attest to how ridiculous and how crazy the notion is of the 15-minute thing. And we can beat that to death. It's just a bit much. I understand the metrics of it. I understand that different houses have different needs and different requirements and things like that. But different kilowatt hour usages, different. Houses are different. Every house is different. Every appliance is different. But the notion that families that can afford the swimming pool, the EV, the hot tub, they were probably paying a higher kilowatt hour bill naturally. So their bill was probably expensive as it was already. And to think that somebody in fixed income, smaller house, really conservative with their kilowatt hour usage, to think that you could tell that person that they weren't paying their fair share, and so their bill, their electricity usage, we need to double that. essentially. This gentleman that came to me today, his usage was $40. His demand charge was $40. And in what world is that okay? There was a lady at the first meeting in Willard that asked Ozark Electric if raising her, if her bill going up by 50% was proper. And there was a lot of hum-hawing around, and she asked him again very sternly, asked Patrick, and he said no, it's not proper. But there wasn't anything past that. And honestly, I don't know how that would be a hard thing to address, that one situation. I'd like to look at her bill, and I'd like to dive into it a little bit and see. Oh, there's my light. And and see if there's something that can be done there. But under the demand charges, I mean, those of you that are out there that are trying to mitigate this, it's tough. So, if you have any questions for me, there was one of the customers has said that he's got a Zoom account, and so we could possibly do some Zoom meetings and some question and answer where you guys can ask me my views and bounce ideas off each other. Or if you just don't like the way that I think, come on and let's have a chat. I don't know that I can convince you any different, but or if my math's wrong, someone correct my math. But I checked it a few times, and I think it's pretty accurate. So, all right. Hopefully you made it to this 26-minute point and aren't bored yet. So, any questions, just let me know. All right. Have a good day.